everybody. It is so great to see all of you here. Thanks so much for joining us on this January day. My name is Beth Santos, and I'm founder and CEO of Wonderful. And we love to have these conversations about how the travel industry is moving, how travel is evolving from time to time. And I'm really excited about this one because not only are we in complete New Year's resolution mode, but we're also coming off of actually still very much in 2 years of pandemic. And I think because of that, there's one thing in travel that's really changed, and that's this conversation about wellness. So I'm really looking forward to talking with you all. You are an expert audience already because so many of you have already started introducing yourself in the comments. So way to go. If you are here watching in, there's a couple places you might be watching. The first is on YouTube. The second place is on LinkedIn. And the third place is on Facebook. We're streaming on all platforms. So if you're not seeing other comments, know that it's probably people in the other platform that are commenting, but go ahead and drop in who you are and where you're coming in from. I'd love to see who is around the world. I know we have Monica in Michigan. We have over here in Phoenix. We have Alexa in Waco. Ann Becker's in Chicago. Lori's in Wilmington, North Carolina. So really coming in, we want to hear from all of you. And I just want to welcome you if you're not familiar with Wonderful and what our community is all about. We are an international collective of travelers and travel content creators on a mission to make travel better for women worldwide. And we do that in a number of ways. We have a very dynamic online member community as well as virtual events. We also run a number of in-person events, including the WITS Travel Creator and Brand Summit, and my personal favorite, which is I think all about wellness, Wanderfest, which is the first major outdoor travel festival by and for women happening in downtown New Orleans in March. It's going to be incredible. You will get a follow-up email with all the links and everything that you need to know about us, as well as things that our panelists bring up today. So stay tuned for that. And with that, I want to make sure we have enough time to really talk through this topic. So I want to bring in our moderator and our panelists. And everyone who's commenting right now, there's just so much good stuff. Charlene is in Boston, adapting travel for people with mobility and cognitive challenges. Lauren's in Bogota, Ingrid's in Tucson, Arizona, Jennifer's in Seattle. Flex and Fly says Happy New Year from El Salvador. We have such an international community here today, so thrilled to have you all. Laura, I'm going to bring you in. Laura is our moderator today, and I want to do a little bit of bragging about everybody who's joining. Laura Fernandez is a trailblazer in the audio space, which led her to her current position as SXM Media's Travel and Tourism VP Head of Industry. Her work is focused on developing media solutions that connect travel brands with their target customers in innovative ways using the power of SXM Media, which is SiriusXM, SoundCloud, Pandora, Stitcher, and more. Laura expertly weaved together XSM Media's assets with needs and habits of travelers and guided brands to effectively target them where they're most engaged. She's passionate about the ever-evolving audio industry, enjoys educating brands on the various ways they can take advantage of audio platforms' captivated audience. And I realize
Thank you, Beth.
I'm on a little bit of a delay. So
hi,
Laura. Great to see you here.
Can you hear me okay, Beth?
And I'm going to go ahead and introduce you. Sorry, Laura, if I'm interrupting you because my audio is just a little messed up, and I want to make sure that we get to all of our amazing panelists. So let me bring them all on in. Next up is Annie Daly, author of Destination Wellness. Annie is a New York-based freelance writer, editor, reporter, and author with more than a decade of experience in national lifestyle media. Yeah, and I can hear you, Laura. Sorry, I'm just like way behind on my audio. So I'm going to power through this and let you take over and hop in on my phone. Annie, your specialties are travel and wellness, and she especially to intersect. She's so obsessed with this topic, in fact, that she wrote a whole book about Destination Wellness highlights her trip around heavy living philosophies. She's also held staff positions at both digital and print publications at Condé Nast as the branded content editor herself, and she was travel editor at BuzzFeed and editor at Yahoo Travel, Cosmopolitan, Good Housekeeping, all across the board. You've seen so much of her work. So,
we maybe just having Beth, just a little bit of audio technical issues. Happy 2022. Let's get our webinar started. Actually, Beth, are you able
Sorry,
to bring
Laura, were you saying something, or do you want to chat me?
Yeah, so if you want to bring
everyone else in and get you all started so that you can all talk without me, because obviously
don't even worry. Yeah, so if you can bring up Amy.
Sophia, I'm founder and CEO of Papilia, a company committed to improving diversity.
Okay. I am not sure how to get Amy on. Hi, I'm Laura Fernandez. So I head up the travel tourism vertical at SXM Media, which is the parent company for our advertising division for SiriusXM, Pandora, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. We are going to have Amy from Hilton be joining us, but happy 2022. And you know what? I think we're probably all a little bit rusty with the webinar scene. So thank you for everyone that has joined and being patient with us. We are here today to talk about the wellness industry. It is a $241 trillion industry. And I do think wellness and travel, I know wellness and travel go hand in hand, especially now. Whether you want to go on a digital detox resort vacation, or it's just about maintaining your wellness routine on the road. We have such an incredible group of travel experts, not only experts in the travel industry, but also experts around wellness. And once Amy joins, if you just let me know when you get your camera up. I don't have any access to make sure everyone's camera is on. So Amy is on. Woo! Okay. Poor Beth. I feel awful. But I mean, this again is, we're all getting back into the swing of things about live events. But this topic, wellness, and I think that we can all take a moment here and be like, I incorporated my number one, I would say, wellness trend of the past couple years is staying present and not letting things like a Zoom or StreamYard mishap get to the best of us. So we are here to talk about wellness. Amy, thank you for joining SVP at Hilton Worldwide. Amy and I work very closely on the marketing and advertising side together. But let's talk about wellness. Thank you all again for joining. I mentioned when we're thinking about wellness trends, there's so many trends out there, whether it's meditation, it's self-care, yoga, going on wellness retreats. But I want to start off by asking each of you 1 to 2 wellness trends that you've embraced over the past couple of years. I'm going to start with Annie. So I don't know if you heard this when Beth introduced Amy, but Annie, but talk about someone that has truly embraced wellness and travel is Annie. Annie wrote a book about it. So she wrote Destination Wellness, Global Secrets for Better Living Wherever You Are. Annie, what are 2 trends that you've embraced over the past couple years?
Sure. I love this question. So, in my book, I basically went to 6 different places around the world and learned about how people in various cultures define wellness where they are. And so, one of the philosophies that I have truly embraced is from Norway. It's called Friluftsliv, and it basically
What is it
translates
called? What is it called?
Friluftsliv. It's spelled Friluftsliv. And it translates to the fresh air life. And it's basically this idea that spending as much time as possible outside, whether it's in nature or even just walking around your neighborhood, is really great for the soul. And that is something that I've embraced during COVID because I've been in New York a lot of this time. And although I've tried to get out into hardcore nature in the Catskills and other places, I've found it really comforting to know that simply just walking around the neighborhood all the time, as much as possible, taking as many phone calls as I can outside, walking to the park, that it really and truly helps your well-being and helps you stay grounded, just breathing in that fresh air. So that's one. And the other one that I love is I've really embraced taking warm baths at night. And I got, we all talk about bathing already, but I got this idea in Japan. They really love onsens, which is the hot water baths with mineral salts. And I take those at night and it's so soothing and it just helps me get ready for bed in a lovely way.
Oh, I love that. I think one of my own personal, outside of just staying present and not letting things impact you is that are out of your control, but also my nighttime routine is key. I
Yep.
personally love listening to taking away all the devices and listening to an audiobook at night and giving my eyes a little bit of a break. And I love the idea of like the nighttime ritual because we know like sleep is so important, such a big part of like wellness as a whole. Sophia,
Mhm.
what are two trends that you've really embraced?
So it's interesting, similar to Annie, I was forest bathing for me is, very similar to what you had mentioned, Annie. And it has been nature, connection to nature. Very simple, like you also said, is just being outside. And I recently, this past year, I got my mindfulness meditation certificate. So I integrate that into my wellness practice. But something that I have that was just mind blowing, but still just very practical was when I feel like I'm just all over the place, stopping and paying attention to the footsteps that I take. So slowing down and paying attention to how I walk. And that has brought me back to the present moment time and time again. So it's an interesting, it goes along with meditation and it goes along with forest bathing, but that simple little tip has really helped me reconnect with the present moment. And I'd say another one, along with all of that is slowing down and setting boundaries. Is something that I've tried to incorporate into my routine. So really trying to think about and being intentional about um, my time and how I give my time. So making sure that every interaction I have is 100% as opposed to the depleted 20%. Um, so those are two big ones. I have a ton that I incorporated this year. I could go on and on, a ton, but those
There,
two.
oh, I love that of like listening to your footsteps and really and bringing yourself back into that present moment because it's like especially with this virtual world we're sadly still in, it's like taking that walk outside and actually listening to the footprints. And footsteps is incredible.
Mhm.
Amy, what are some wellness trends that you've really embraced over the past couple of years?
Yeah, and these are so great. It's so nice to hear from other women about what they're doing and how they're embracing things. So I'm getting tips as we're talking, which is amazing. And I love that there are words for the nature connection piece now in multiple languages, because that's been something I've done for my own wellness for years, but I never realized it was a thing. So I love that. So something new that I've started to do is the idea of a reset, and that a reset when you're getting stressed or you're getting caught up in things, or you're going from Zoom meeting or Teams meetings as we do, from thing to thing to thing, right? And you're feeling that shallow breathing happening, and your fight or flight kicking in. I have embraced the reset, and the idea of the reset is it can be as simple as I think it only takes 90 seconds. I'm sure I have it wrong, to reset your nervous system. Sophia probably knows. But it doesn't take long. So you can do square breathing. You can, just take literally, a minute and a half to breathe intentionally, and it will reset your nervous system and help to bring everything down, those stress levels down. So I've tried to do that. And I often do it while I'm walking my dog and trying to be intentional about it, be outside. So I kind of combine it all, rather than walking my dog and walking quickly and thinking about all the things I have to do. And, so that's been one. The other one is being more authentic in my interactions, a little bit of building on what you were saying, Sophia, being more vulnerable with my team, with those I love, kind of being more, just kind of bringing my whole self to those moments. And that has really unlocked, I think, more mental wellness for all of us. So, my team and I are closer than ever, as a result, and I feel better about it. So that's been a kind of a one I probably wouldn't have put into the wellness category before now, but now I do.
Yeah, I mean, it is like that authenticity. I mean, we're all in, different but similar industries. We're all talking about travel, which is so exciting, but how wellness comes into the whole travel experience. But that authenticity and like taking a step back and actually really listening to people, whether it's friends or family or colleagues. I mean, really listening and building that relationship and having that human aspect. And I think so many of our, whether conversations, it's like we've lost a little bit of the human aspect of those conversations, and they've turned into like this formality of like getting on a Zoom meeting or, presenting to someone, and you missing that human aspect. But like bringing that human aspect back to the conversation is a wellness trend. Uh, you know, I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about wellness and travel. I brought this topic up actually to a friend that's not in advertising, marketing, not a travel influencer, but he asked me, "What do you think wellness travel is? Is wellness travel like when I go to Napa and drink some wine, or is wellness travel when I would go to Austin and go, visit a dude ranch and ride a horse?" I go, "It's both. It's really what you make it out to be." So I would love to get a better understanding what you think wellness travel is. And I know that's a very broad question, and I'm kind of throwing us right into this topic. But Amy, what do you believe wellness travel is? And working for such a premier brand as Hilton, how does that go hand in hand?
Yeah, I think you answered your friend really well. I think it is what you make it to some degree. I think what we believe at Hilton is there are times when you might travel with the purpose of furthering your wellness, right? So you might actually make it a trip that is about, kind of things that make you feel more well in a holistic way. And that might be, spas and nature and, the types of food and beverage. It might be a yoga retreat. It might be some of those things that or drinking wine in Napa, if that's your wellness, which definitely could be mine. Um, and then I think the bigger part of the trend, I think that was already happening, and I think that's probably accelerated. But I think the bigger trend that we see now is that people don't want to leave wellness behind when they travel, right? They want to bring their lifestyle with them. They want to be enabled to continue that as they travel. So it's not just about fitness anymore, right? It's much broader than that. They want to make sure they can continue their great sleep habits, have their hot baths like Annie was describing, or, you know, eat the way they need to eat, and do all the things they need to do. And that's what we're really seeing in our trends at Hilton. And I think that's indicative of what's happening more broadly. So it's about how do we make sure we're enabling that, and women are at the forefront of it, as we often are.
I mean, it is. I think that we all travel for whether it's business or leisure, and it is a good point of like keeping your wellness routine on the road. I used to be on the road almost every single week, and people would say like, how do you maintain that? Like, how are you still like able to do it? I'm like, I keep up my same wellness routine on the road, and that's where you have to be thinking of that, of like your routine and sticking to it when you go on a trip. Annie, what is your thought of like wellness and travel and the experiences that you're seeing? And so many, I mean, in your book, you've given so many great insights into different cultures and different communities. And how does it look through your eyes of wellness and travel?
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of it is about it's this slight reframe where we now can think of travel as the act of wellness. Because to me, so much of wellness comes from human connection and learning about other cultures and expanding your worldview. And so now it's not just going to a spa or going to a place where you can like check into wellness, but it's actually about recognizing that travel itself, it's such a privilege now, and that is so much of the wellness comes from putting yourself in a place where you can connect with locals and where you can learn new philosophies and sort of expand your worldview so that ends up being the act of wellness.
And actually, if you don't mind me interjecting, that's something we really found. I love that, Annie. We found that, especially in the first sort of 6 months of the pandemic, there was something we discovered called a travel memory deficit. And it was actually because so many people make the most positive and happiest memories when they're traveling, and they sort of feed off of those when they're not traveling, when they're sort of back in their day-to-day lives, and not having that top up of those actually was a real drag on people's mental well-being. So you're 100% right that sort of that travel as a part of being well is so critical, because that connection, that reconnection to places, to people, and to culture is so important to us.
Exactly. And I think a second part of that is that you go to these places and you learn something new, and then you're able to bring those learnings back home. And so I would say the second part of wellness travel is actually traveling from home, as we all did so much of during this pandemic. And sort of, if you're not in a place of being able to travel at this current moment, at least reflecting back on previous travels and recognizing how you can bring those lessons into your daily life, no matter where you live or wherever you are.
Yeah, I think an interesting part as I listen to you both, I keep nodding because everything you've said is exactly how I feel and very on point. I think one thing I'd like to add is that, you know, when I think wellness travel, you think again like the spas and all of this, and it's so far out of reach. And during the pandemic, you know, I have a toddler, and I don't feel comfortable taking him on a plane yet, and I needed wellness. We all needed wellness in the house. Let's be honest. So what we did was we take little road trips to, you know, an hour or two away, and we'd stay overnight somewhere. But it was like, you know, and it was still embracing wellness in nature. We looked for different lakes or different areas of water, and I think that also is really important. The accessibility of wellness and travel, where before it didn't feel accessible because we have these large constructs of having to spend so much money. But when we can go maybe to the next town or an hour out and maybe book a room in at a Hilton maybe, and still be in nature and explore a different culture, different than our own.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this is where I do think this was actually one of my questions, but like I think the biggest, what I'm hearing, the biggest myth about wellness travel is you're going to go to a spa. And I'm hearing the outdoor experiences, the road trips, and just bringing honestly up the memory of an amazing trip that you've been on. And I appreciate Sophia's call out. Like sometimes, your initial idea of wellness is maybe out of reach, but how can you then localize it and bring it to a love layer that you're comfortable with? Do you think, when has wellness changed? I think we have touched on this, but has wellness changed since the pandemic? What would you say is maybe one of the biggest changes outside of outdoor experiences? Anything that we haven't brought up? Annie?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, as you just said, I think people used to think of wellness as, well, two things. One, that it is incredibly expensive, and two, that it's really physical, that it involves a lot of touch and massages and it's like checking yourself into a spa and getting all of these treatments. And I'm of two minds about it, because who doesn't love to get pampered? Like I love that. Like I will not ever not love a massage. But I think that wellness has the very definition of wellness has expanded, and people are now realizing that it is more accessible than it was previously made out to be, and that it is a lot more mental as well and not so physical. And I think people are embracing meditation and journaling and sleeping. That's a really big one. These basic things that don't involve going to the spa, that that's wellness now, and that's
Yeah.
wellness travel. So
I think it brought mindfulness into the mainstream. I think is what if just I totally agree with everything you just said, Annie, and I think that's what it did. It was already obviously an important trend, but I really think it sort of accelerated it into the mainstream. And to your point, it rounded out wellness, which people who knew already knew this, but they rounded it out from just the physical. I think that's well said.
I think the other interesting part is that we're trying to get back to basics and simplicity. Like you said, sleep and trying to eat well and really getting back to the core. That's one. And I see the other aspect from an accessibility standpoint is access to online yoga, access to more online programs that create, then there's that tech aspect, which is really interesting. And so being able to have access online to health is also really important, because it provides so much more possibility for people that may not honestly have the ability to drive somewhere or to transport themselves to a place. So I think that's also an interesting thing that has come up from our current time and place.
Yeah, or to afford a gym or a yoga studio. I think that's a really great point, Sophia.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I do love about like destinations and for the travel industry when we're thinking about wellness is there has been now an increase in these like virtual experiences, and where you really get to explore the destination and you may not be able to get there. I think Ireland did an incredible job of like exploring Ireland, and it's interesting that there's also destinations that are adding these like audio journeys of like you get to experience and like hear, whether it's like a museum or a national park, you have that audio experience. So you may not be able to be there in person, but you can still have that experience. What when we're thinking about what whether it's hospitality brands, destinations, um, airlines, transportation, what brands are really doing it right when it comes to wellness, and some things that you have seen them incorporate over the past couple years? Sophia, do you want to start this one off?
my mind was like trying to think of, I think actually one that comes up to mind, and it's a pretty large brand, is Athleta. They're a B Corp, and they've also, so Benefit Corporation, for those that may not know what a B Corp is. They've been trying to do a lot of work in a lot of different ways. From an imagery standpoint, they've in their advertising, they've showed a lot of different body types, a lot of different ethnicities, to show how accessible and how we represent all these different backgrounds in wellness. So I think I've noticed that definitely here. I've also noticed with Athleta, they've also done programming. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, great.
You're good.
I think my ears are small. From my headphones. But they've also done a lot. They have a program, The Power of She, and they have different programming that is really geared towards a holistic look of what wellness is. So again, not just yoga, even though they sell that, but mindfulness and different types of way to move your body and your mind. So that's honestly one brand that I've resonated with, and I've noticed it because it's interesting for me to see how marketing has changed in wellness, and to see someone that looks like me is new, and it really stands out.
That is great. I had not, I have to look into, I had not seen that whole change for them. So thank you for calling that out.
Mm-hmm.
Annie, what are your thoughts of like a brand that's done wellness right?
Yeah, the brand that immediately came to mind when you asked that was the Rosewood. And the reason for that is I really love to think of wellness when traveling. I love to learn about the cultural practices of wherever I am. And I think that they have done a great job incorporating cultural lessons into their hotel programming. Like, in Mexico, you can learn about the indigenous Mayan practices. And to me, that's a really big part of wellness, is the cultural aspect. And so I think that the Rosewood and Hilton and a lot of hotel brands have really been embracing that and labeling these lessons as part of their wellness offerings so that it's expanded just from the spa.
Yeah, again, really, I do like the cultural lesson piece of like, again, while you were traveling, is to understand not only for wellness, but also to understand different cultures. Amy, I do want to hear about what Hilton is doing. We've spoken about the 5 feet to fitness for Hilton, but would love to get a better handle on how Hilton has embraced wellness into the whole experience.
Absolutely. And I think 5 feet to fitness is one part of it. To your point, Laura, those are our rooms that sort of make it possible, which I think is a trend we've seen as well. People don't want to just go to a gym. They want to be able to have a room that enables them to keep their physical routines or their fitness routines right in order. So that's what those 5 feet to fitness rooms do, which is great. They're sort of kitted out with weights and mats and all those kinds of things. So that's, I think, one thing we've done. But I think over the years, I think we've been a real leader in thinking about wellness more holistically, even before people were sort of connecting all those dots more broadly. Our Travel with Purpose program is really about that. It's about both kind of making sure that you can travel and practice mindful eating and sleeping and traveling, but also about sustainability, both economic and environmental, and all the aspects of sustainability of our communities. So to Annie's point about, traveling and really experiencing the culture, also knowing that you are not having a negative impact on the culture as well, but that we're actually, a part of the solution for that community. And we're, doing more and more in the space of, making sure that we're working with local communities to help them, and the local providers and artisans and, those in the community be part of, how the supply for Hilton, right? And in terms of whether it's food or other products or services or whatever. So really kind of thinking holistically so that when you travel, we even have a Meet with Purpose program as well that does it for meetings and groups. When you travel, you can actually do it in a way that is good for you and it's good for the community. And we're finding more and more too that people doing meetings and events want to make sure that their meeting has a light footprint in many, many ways, that they incorporate mindfulness and other wellness into the meetings for the participants, and that there's a community service aspect attached to it. So we actually include that in that program, which I think is really, really important and has been really, really popular for good reason.
No, I mean, the whole Travel with Purpose program is incredible what Hilton has developed. And, I think when we're thinking about, because I do look at travel through two lenses of the leisure travel and then the business travel. And I am an avid business traveler through and through. And I attend a ton of conferences. And one thing that I've really loved conferences incorporating is Amy, we were at IGLTA and they had a park run. And so that was where attendees were able to join together and go for a run. And I've seen now conferences incorporating mindfulness meditation sessions. And I saw a conference, and this was actually back in 2019 that I attended. And I think it was actually Skipped. Skipped opened with a meditation, a gong meditation. And I thought that was like so incredible. And I will tell you, the travel industry, when it comes to mindfulness, and we can all probably agree this is one of the biggest trends to really come out of the pandemic. But travel conferences and travel brands truly are the leaders. They are thinking about it all the time. And for me, when I attend a conference and start with a group meditation, that's awesome. Like that really does set a great intention for the conference and the meeting. And I look at what Wonderful is putting on. I mean, we're here talking about wellness right now today. I did want to call out, we have an amazing group of travel experts here with us today. And if you have any questions, because we are going to do a Q&A at the end about wellness travel. I mean, if you have additional tips that you want to hear from our experts, please plug them into the comments section, because I really would love to touch on some additional trends at the end of the conversation. Continuing to talk about wellness travel, as what do you think that we need to do to focus on it not being a nice to have, versus at what point should we start thinking of it as a need to have? How would you tell your friend or your colleague why travel needs to be a part of their wellness routine? If that helps. It's a pretty long-winded question, but Annie, can you hopefully kick us off?
Sure. Well, I think starting the first part of my answer to that question is just recognizing that travel is such an incredible privilege, and to frame it in this need to have zone. It's tricky because travel isn't always accessible to everybody. So I will be careful to label it as a need to have, but I think that what we could do is think of it as a I don't really know what I'm saying with this, but just as a way to, yeah.
No, you're good. And I think it is, it's and Sophia or Amy chime in here, but it's talking about travel and wellness and how we can bring this to life with our friends or our colleagues and encourage them.
Well, and I think Sophia said it well too earlier when she what I took from what you said, Sophia, is that travel doesn't have to be with a capital T all the time either, right? And to your, the point that you also brought up earlier, it needs to be accessible, and it's not for everybody. So travel doesn't need to be, flying off to some exotic destination and, having a, 2-week holiday and it's super expensive and glam, right? And spas and wellness and forest bathing and all the amazing things. That's great if you can do it, but there can be something with just getting out of your hometown any way you can, whether that's, just walking down to the local park or, getting on a bus somewhere or, taking the public transport. I'm a public transport girl, so I know all about that. So, you can get lots of good places doing that. And it's not expensive. So, it can just be changing the scene. And I think that change of scene, that change of mindset is what's so important about travel. I'm sure, Sophia, you've made great memories with your toddler, just getting an hour away from home, right? Or whatever you've done. And so that's the important thing is changing that scene, doing it, when you can and how you can. And that's what I would say is it's really important to give yourself and your loved ones the chance to connect in a different place because it changes that connection and enriches it.
Amy, that's exactly, you've said it really well. And as you mentioned that, something came up for me when I was doing my just brainstorm of what I want this year to look like. A friend of mine had to remind me, she's like, why don't you get out of your house and go somewhere else so you can just get a different change of scenery and that will inspire you. And, how I know this, but sometimes you just need to hear it. Like light bulb, moment. And I thought, oh, that's a great idea. So I intentionally did that. Kind of went somewhere else and got out of my rut, and just sitting somewhere else really did make a difference. And so maybe it's to your point, Laura, saying it is a need to have. Maybe you just need a different scenery, a different change of routine, 15 minutes down the road. And that could be an accessible way to help change minds on what wellness travel is. And sometimes we just need that nudge and that reminder and that feeling, that personal feeling of that. What does that change of scenery feel like? Oh, that feels really good. Maybe I should then, take it an hour out of my day, or go an hour out of where I live. So perhaps like small incremental steps can also help. Because I think it's one thing to tell someone that you need this, but then for them to experience it, that's where the real change takes. So having those incremental shifts or that nudge may help friends and family with that reset.
I like that. And I like the whole idea of the reset, and overarching themes is get outside. We've done a lot of research on our end just with our listeners, and one of the things that they constantly are craving is getting outside. And I love hearing from each one of you because it's like, to Sophia's point, I mean, take a drive 15 minutes up the road and get some new scenery, and that can be a part of your whole wellness 2022 strategy. And if anyone does have any questions, but I did want to, and I know we've spoken about wellness trends a ton, and I actually had a question for Annie, because Annie is it was a term that actually was a description from your book, and it was a word. It's another new word I had never heard of. It was HYGGE.
Oh, hygge.
Hygge. Hygge. Yes.
Yeah, it's pronounced.
I didn't know what hygge was. Can you tell us what that is?
Oh, definitely. So hygge is basically it's a Danish philosophy, and it's the Danish idea of being cozy. And it's this idea that when it's winter and it's super cold out and it's dark, and we're also tempted to think like, oh, if I could only be at the beach right now, instead of thinking that, we should be embracing this cozy lifestyle and embracing, the lighting candles and putting on music and sort of creating a vibe in your apartment, and that you can actually feel really happy and cozy and well when you're doing that. And so hygge in Denmark is so popular because it gets so dark so early there. And, it's so cold. And so just getting cozy, and instead of being so bummed about it, but actually embracing it,
Yeah.
that's really helpful. And we can think about that idea in so many other ways too, like just kind of flipping these things on their head, something that's negative, turning it into a positive.
I love it. I'm learning so much today. And I think that one of my favorite things about getting back on the road was actually getting into the hotel room bed. And I think that that's like one of my favorite things to do is, as lame as it sounds, is being in that hotel room bed, getting my laptop and actually like catching up with work. But when else do you get to work in bed unless you're on the road? I want to end with, because we've all spoken about so many trends, and I think we've heard from each other new trends. Is there anything that you've heard today that you want to start incorporating going into, obviously now we're in 2022? Me personally is, I loved what Sophia had said of paying attention to your footsteps. And I think that's something that I really do want to start incorporating into my daily wellness routine. Amy?
I have been working on balancing my nutrition a little bit better because I notice I feel better. I have better clarity of mind. My mood is better. My sleep is better. And I feel better just overall in my body and my mind when I have a more balanced, kind of diet for me. And that means for me, it's more of a plant-based diet. I still not a vegetarian, but kind of rounding out and incorporating more plant-based foods and dinners and meals for my wife and myself. And that's both because it makes me feel good, but it also is good for the planet. So it sort of has a halo effect as well. And that takes a lot of intention, right? Because you can't just rock up and, well, I can't rock up and whack together dinner like I might have done before when it was, I grew up, it was a meat and 2 veg, right? So you gotta think differently. So kind of learning a little bit more about that and being more intentional and in that space.
Love
I love
it.
that. Annie?
Yes, I forget who it was that said this, but somebody was talking about setting boundaries. And that really resonated with me because I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I've just always been a yes person, which is why I think I enjoy travel so much. And I'm so open and sort of just like ready to chat with anyone and do anything and say yes to everything and everyone. And it's so great. But I think I need to work on saying no sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And just the whole idea of establishing boundaries is something I've never done.
I heard recently, Annie, that when you say no, your yes means more. And I thought that was a really great thought.
Totally.
I could add that too. That's such a good one.
That's
such a good one. It is. It's hard to say no.
I know. Well, especially because saying yes always leads to such great times. And it's like when you're traveling, it's the best way to learn about new cultures and meet people and just, always. Yeah. So it's a daily struggle for me to not say yes to everything.
I like that. Yeah. Sophia?
For me, since I had a little time to think, is I've been really trying to practice in the morning to, I have my routines. I go work out, I do all that, but waking up in the morning and taking 3 intentional breaths to start my day is something that I want to continue to remind myself to do. Because it's, again, that part of it intention setting and boundaries, but it's making sure I carve out time for myself. And then I have 2 really quick ones. One is the other is music, and I've noticed that I've incorporated grounding music into my workspace. So music that's at like that 400 megahertz. So it's grounding. It helps me focus, and that has been really helpful as I work. And the last thing really quickly is continuing the dialogue of mindfulness with my toddler.
I like that.
So
Well,
yeah.
considering I work for music platforms, I am down.
I was going to tell you, Laura, actually shameless plug, but I was going to tell you that when over the holiday break, my wife and I were trying to do runs outside in new places to kind of, reconnect with nature. But what we found was that when we listened to Pandora, as we were doing that, it was so much richer. It like enriched the experience. Now there are sometimes when you want to hear the outdoor sounds but there are other times when it's really nice to bring that in and kind of combine things.
I mean, this could be a whole other webinar about wellness and music. I mean, 90%, we found this really high stat, 90% of our listeners use music as both a source of comfort and for their mental health, as well as a travel companion. And I mean, again, whole other conversation. But I completely agree with listening to music. And I think my nightly ritual is going to be let's take a bath and then listen to an audiobook and zone out, count my steps. I'm going to add it all. I do. Let's see. I think we did have a couple of questions. Okay. This is a really good one. What are some of your favorite ways to prioritize wellness while you're traveling on the go? I personally bring a sound machine with wherever I go so I can sleep well. I have my own personal sound machine. Very simple, but I go back to I need sleep. And especially when I'm traveling, if I can just bring my sound machine. So that's a very simple tactic that I have.
I often will talk to the hotel and find out where the best places are for a walk or a run. Because usually when I'm doing that, I was in Vegas. Laura knows. I saw Laura while I was there. And when you're somewhere like Vegas, or a lot of the trips I go on for business, you're kind of indoors a lot and having a great time, but you're not. I just wanted to see the sky after a few days in conference rooms. So I found, I work with the hotel or anybody you meet, actually, Uber and Lyft drivers, or, they often can point you in a great direction for a local park or someplace to just go and kind of not lose that connection with nature if that's important for you. So that's something I try and do while I'm traveling.
Love that. Sophia?
I love that. I do very much the same to be able to absorb where I am and to pay attention to my surroundings. And in addition to that, I always take aromatherapy, like a little aromatherapy ball with me, so I can have a familiar scent of grounding or home. And I bring that with me to, again, kind of bring myself back to what's important priorities as I travel. So that kind of helps to ground me.
Aromatherapy. I do the same.
That's a great idea. I'm going to do that.
Yeah. I used to travel with both my sound machine and this diffuser, but my suitcase was not having it anymore. I was like, okay, this is a little aggressive here. And then I had my steamer, everything. I'm like, gotta actually pack some clothes. So
these little balls you can get. I'll just say, I'll find the brand, but they're these little tubes, and it's the best. They're very travel friendly.
Oh, yeah, send them my way, please. Mm-hmm. Annie, can you round us off?
Okay, so I have two big things that I always do. My first is journaling. I am a huge journaler, and I find, especially when I'm traveling, just being in a new atmosphere, it really opens up my brain. So anything that I've been thinking about, it's like all of a sudden I'll have just an explosion of thoughts about that topic and a million others. So it's really important for me to journal when I'm traveling, because I always come to my best self conclusions at that time. And the second thing I do is sort of similar to Amy's about finding a running path, but I actually always make sure to ask the hotel about the best spot to take sunset photos. I love taking photos in my spare time. And I find that like getting to that place to find and witness the best sunset wherever you are is so grounding. It not only helps you connect with the local area, but also just with nature overall. And it gives you this moment of awe, which there's all sorts of research that points to the fact that when you feel moments of awe, that is directly tied to your well-being. So you can check out my Instagram for all my sunset photos. So many.
Oh, that's amazing. That I love that tip. And because I mean, all of us, again, overarching theme here today is get outside.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, I love that. Find where you can see the sunset. Melina just wrote, so inspired to get away for some moments of wellness and sunsets. We've got really some amazing feedback, such great ideas. Thanks, everyone. I do. I mean, we could spend, I know that's so cliche to say, but spend more time talking through this. But I have really enjoyed this conversation. I've personally taken away so many wellness tips, and I loved hearing all your different takes on wellness and the whole travel experience, and how to bring it home and make it accessible to everyone. Amy, Sophia, Annie, thank you so much. And I don't think Beth is going to be able to hop back on. So the wonderful community, thank you so much for joining, and thank you everyone else for signing on today. Marissa and Beth, we should put together this list of all the tips. Let's make sure to get this up, whether it's via social. I'm actually just throwing things out there so we can see how to get the list out to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.